As time passed, Madame Chinyere's desire grew stronger. She began to use her charm to seduce Amaka's suitors. Whenever a young man comes to visit, Madame Chinyere will invite him for a private conversation under the pretense of getting to know him better. In the heart of Owerri, there lives a wealthy woman named Madame Chinyere Okeke. Known for her beauty and elegance, Madame Chinyere was the epitome of grace and sophistication. She had built a successful business empire from the ground up and was admired by many for her intelligence and charm. Her mansion stood tall in the richest part of the city, and she enjoyed all the luxuries that life has to offer. Madame Chinyere had a daughter, Amaka, who was the light of her life. Amaka was in her early 20s, beautiful and well educated. Despite her mother's wealth, Amaka was humble and kind-hearted, traits that endeared her to everyone who meets her. She had just returned home after completing her university studies in Lagos and was ready to start the next chapter of her life. Amaka was not short of suitors. Young men from wealthy and respectable families frequently visited Madame Chinyere's mansion, hoping to win Amaka's heart. They brought gifts and sort of impressed both Amaka and her mother. Amaka, however, was cautious and took her time getting to know each of them, not wanting to rush into any relationship. Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. As you can see, another video is dropping. Please do me well by subscribing to this YouTube channel, like, comment, and lastly turn on your notification bell so you won't be left out. Back to our story. But there was something about Madame Chinyere that no one knew. Despite her age and status, Madame Chinyere had a deep-seated fear of growing old and losing her allure. She enjoyed the attention she received from men and often found herself craving more than just admiration. She was envious of the youth and beauty of her daughter and secretly resented the fact that the young men who come to court Amaka were more interested in her daughter than in her. As time passed, Madame Chinyere's desire grew stronger. She began to use her charm to seduce Amaka's suitors. Whenever a young man comes to visit, Madame Chinyere will invite him for a private conversation under the pretense of getting to know him better. During these meetings, she will flatter them, touch their hands seductively, and eventually lure them into her bedroom. At first, the men were hesitant, aware that they were betraying Amaka's trust. But Madame Chinyere was persuasive. She promised them gifts, businesses, connections, and the allure of her wealth. Blinded by greed and desire, many of the young men succumbed to her advances. Unbeknownst to Amaka, her mother was secretly sleeping with the very men who came to court her. The more Madame Chinyere indulged in her secret affairs, the more reckless she became. She took pleasures in knowing that she could still captivate young men and that her beauty had not faded with age. She convinced herself that she was in control and that no one would ever find out. Amaka, on the other hand, remained obviously to her mother's action. She noticed that some of her suitors would suddenly lose interest in her and stop visiting, but she assumed it was because they were not serious about marriage. She continued to focus on her life, never suspecting that her own mother was the cause of her suitor's sudden disappearance. One day, a young man named Chinedu came into Amaka's life. He was handsome, respectful, and genuinely interested in Amaka for who she was, not for her family's wealth. Chinedu was different from others, and Amaka found herself falling in love with him. They began to spend more time together, and Chinedu soon expressed his desire to marry her. Madame Chinyere noticed the growing bond between Amaka and Chinedu, felt a pang of jealousy. She couldn't stand the thought of losing another young man to her daughter. Determined to have Chinedu for herself, Madame Chinyere set her sights on him. One evening, While Amaka was out with friends, Madam Chinwe invited Chinedu over to discuss wedding preparations. Chinedu, not suspecting anything, agreed to meet with her. When he arrived, Madam Chinwe offered him a drink and began to compliment him on his looks and character. She started to flirt with him, making her intentions clear. Chinedu, taken aback, tried to resist, but Madam Chinwe was persistent. She reminded him of the power and influence she had in the city and how she could help him in his character. In a moment of weakness, Chinedu gave in and they spent the night together. The next morning, Chinedu was filled with guilt and regret. He knew he had betrayed Amaka, the woman he truly loved. Overwhelmed by shame, he decided to end the relationship with Amaka, believing that he was no longer worthy of her. When Amaka found out that Chinedu had left, she was heartbroken. She couldn't understand why he would suddenly change his mind after everything they had shared. She cried for days, wondering what she had done wrong. Madam Chinwe pretended to comfort her daughter, all the while feeling a twisted sense of satisfaction. As the months passed by, Madam Chinwe continued her reckless behavior. She seduced more of Amaka's suitors, growing more confident that her secrets would never be discovered. But unknown to her, fate had already started to turn against her. One day, Madam Chinwe began to feel unwell. She experienced fatigue, frequent fevers, and unexplained weight loss. At first, she dismissed the symptoms as a minor illness, but as they persisted, she decided to visit the doctor. After several tests, the doctor delivered the devastating news. Madam Chinwe was HIV positive. She shocked and horrified. Madam Chinwe couldn't believe what she was hearing. She had always considered herself careful and invincible. The reality of her situation hit her like a ton of bricks. Fear and shame consumed Madam Chinwe. She realized that her reckless action had finally caught up with her. She had contracted the virus from one of the young men she had seduced, and now she was paying the ultimate price of her desires. As the days went by, Madam Chinwe's health continued to deteriorate. She could no longer hide her condition, and the once proud and beautiful became a shadow of her former self. The news of her illness spread throughout the city, and she became the subject of gossip and ridicule. The very people who once admired her own looks at her own with pity and contempt. Amaka, devastated by the news, couldn't understand how her mother had contracted the virus. It wasn't until one of the domestic workers who had been privy to Madam Chinwe's secret affairs revealed the truth to Amaka. The revelation shattered Amaka's world. She was filled with anger, disgust, and deep sadness. The woman she had loved and looked upon to have betrayed her in the worst possible way. In her final days, Madam Chinwe was left alone, abandoned by the very men who had once seduced. They wanted nothing to do with her now that she was sick. Amaka, despite her anger, took pity on her mother and cared for her. But the relationship between them was irreparable damage. On her deathbed, Madam Chinwe called Amaka to her side with tears in her eyes. She begged for her daughter's forgiveness. She admitted to all the wrongs that she had done, confessing how her desires had led her down path of destruction. Amaka, she whispered weakly, I have made terrible mistakes. My greed and jealousy have cost me everything. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope that one day you can find it in your heart to forgive me. Amaka's tears streaming down her face held her mother's hand. Mama, I may not fully understand why you did what you did, but I forgive you. I only wish you had a chosen different path. With those words, Madam Chinwe took her last breath. She had lived a life filled with luxury and desire, but in the end, it had brought her nothing but pain and regret. After her mother's death, Amaka resolved to live a life that honored her own values. She learned from her mother's mistake and vowed never to let greed or jealousy cloud her judgment. Though the scars of her mother's actions will never fully heal, Amaka moved forward, determined to build a future based on love, integrity, and respect. Hello guys, we've come to the end of our story. Please do give this video a very massive thumbs up, comment, like, share, and subscribe. See you on our next video. This story teaches us on never allow our mind to be filled with cloud of jealousy. This story illustrates the danger of unchecked desire, jealousy, and the consequences of betraying those closest to you. It also highlights the importance of forgiveness and the need to learn from the mistakes of others. Bye. See you on our next video.